Greetings and welcome back to the lab. I'm hoping that I've got the microphone set up right this time and a couple other technical issues. This one should not be too long, not as long as the last one. What we have here was bring up the listing that I ordered it from. Actually, this is only 5 left in stock, but I think there were other listings, so I'll try to give you both the direct listing here and a general search that will get you the same product. And this particular kit is DIY Kit NE555 Component Electronics Piano Organ Module Battery. Boy, none of these descriptions, it's just like they're shooting for only keywords. What this appears to be is basically a like a single octave keyboard so it's a sound generating thing, and the thought I had when I spotted it was, oh, wait a minute, this is probably really hackable, that we could take the waveform that's coming out of this and modify it in various different ways. But first we got to build the initial kit. So let's take a look at the initial description here. Power supply voltage DC 3 to 12 volts. PC board size length 13.5 centimeters by width 2.2 centimeters. So basically, about 5 inches by 1 inch. It is simple and practical, and the power consumption is small, and the circuit is driven by an integrated circuit. The parts are few, and the line is simple and clear. Okay, they were doing good up until that point. Basically, it does have an integrated circuit, but it's a timer chip. It's a really simple, very basic and common chip that shows up in various different products. This is not like the last one. No, sorry, I'm thinking about a different kit that actually built off camera. We haven't gotten into the kits yet that have microcontrollers. I just built one as a challenge to myself that was all surface mount. If you want to look up surface mount, you can. It's basically much smaller components and a bit more difficulty. You have to have a pretty steady hand, and I don't really, but I'm kind of getting away from the point here. This particular circuit is simple. It involves only the one chip and a bunch of resistors, which I believe all they're really doing is controlling the timing of that chip to generate tones. So number 4, in the process of debugging, the understanding of the principle of the circuit will be deepened. I think they're trying to say you'll learn stuff while you're trying to figure out what you did wrong. Package includes 1 set. If I scroll down, I just want to see if there's any more information. And it looks like we've got the product description here. Power supply voltage DC 3 to 12 volts. It's the same information. No videos available yet. I just recently answered a question from somebody on the last one, so that should be up on Amazon now. And then let's look at the pictures. We have your initial picture, which kind of shows the completed project. You have another picture, which is going to show you all the components and the circuit board. You have another one, which is just a different layout of the same stuff. Another one with a different layout. A close-up of the speaker. And a close-up of the 555 timer. And one of the headers for connecting the power. I'm not sure if that's in the kit, but let's leave this here. So let's take a look at the kit. This is how it's coming, prominently made in China. Let's open it up. Let's see what they give us in terms of instructions. The thing we learned with the last kit was sometimes they leave things out. There's a piece of paper in here, along with all these components, and honestly the bag it's coming in looks like it's been moved around quite a bit. So what do we got here? Oh boy. There's a circuit diagram and the entire thing is in Chinese. Alright, so we're going to have to figure it out based on the circuit diagram. Let's take a look at the parts we have. This is your circuit board. I think this is going to be fairly simple. Let me turn on my soldering iron while I'm getting set up here. We'll separate out some of the components. I'm going to take some of the bigger pieces and just move them off to the side. And I actually want to protect the speaker a little bit. You can see stuff is sticking to it, so speakers have magnets. We're going to get all these capacitors off carefully. There we go. I'm not expecting this to be really high fidelity, but here we've got, let me move stuff out of the way, we've got switches. Now we should have, for the number of, if we look at this, I had noticed this earlier, do, re, mi, fa, sol, as in sun, la, si, do. In the West, we have a T instead of C, but there are 8 switches. So far I've got 5 of them sitting here. Let's find the other 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move that to the side. We've got the caps for the switches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's good. We've got the header. I was questioning whether that was included. We've got the chip and a socket for it, so if something does go wrong with the chip, you can replace the chip in the socket without having to desolder it. That's a good thing. That's a plus on this kit. We've got resistors. Let's see if they bothered to label them. Nope. Okay, but it appears there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And there's more resistors here. There's 2 of those. There's 1 lonely resistor. That will make it easier to figure out for process of elimination. We have a piece of something here. I'm hoping that didn't come off the speaker. I'm inspecting the speaker for damage here. I don't know if that's supposed to be something covering up the... well, I think the speaker is still going to work. But that's a little discouraging just to find a piece of plastic. Oh, wait a minute. I'll bet you it came off of here. Off the battery? Yep, it came off the battery. Oh man, the battery pack is broken. Alright, we're going to have to figure out what to do about that. We'll come back to that. Like I said, the bag is in pretty rough shape, so I guess that's not a total surprise. We've got 1 electrolytic capacitor. We've got 2 smaller capacitors and 1 larger capacitor. And then we have a couple of pieces of wire. Yeah, on the circuit board. Now we do have a schematic to go by, and I don't expect everybody watching this to know how to read a schematic. But fortunately, there is printing on the circuit board, so you can see it says, hoping that's coming through here, 2K, 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 1K, 10K, and another 1K over here. So I think all of these, the larger number of resistors are 2K. We've got 1Ks here and we've got a 10K here. Just process of elimination. You can also read the bands on the resistors to figure out what's what. We've got a spot here. If I were to look at the picture online, of the assembled product, yeah. It looks like this header is supposed to go on here, right about there. So let's start building this, and we'll just get through. We're going to go with low profile components. We're going to start with the resistors. That'll kind of get them out of our way. But also I start with low profile because you kind of want to build up. Once you put the larger profile, the taller components on, it does become more difficult to squeeze, sometimes, to squeeze in the smaller, the lower profile ones. Now I'm going to be a little bit, I'm going to try and put these so that the color bands are all facing in the same direction. But there's a 2K. Oh, maybe they messed up with the spacing? It'll work. The holes they drilled for the resistors could be a tad further apart. Let's get some solder and the iron and get this first one on. Alright, and then I am just going to, like I've done in the other videos, just going to repeat this process and go through all of these 2K resistors and cut off the excess leads, stick them up in the corner there in case I need them. I don't see any jumpers on this particular one. I do see a solder blob right where one of my switches is supposed to go. So I'm going to clear that, and then we'll just go into time lapse while I get all the resistors on, or all the 2Ks. Alright, it looks like I have one 2K resistor left over. I've put in all the 2Ks. I can see the next one is 1K and then 10K and another 1K down here. So I'm going to put in the 1K resistors and come back when I'm done with that. Alright, that leaves the 10K resistor. By process of elimination, that has to be this one. So, since they didn't label them, I'm not even really bothering to read because it is pretty obvious. But if you really want to be sure, you really should Google resistor color code and learn how to read the actual color codes. Unfortunately, a lot of these kits contain these resistors with a blue background, and it's really hard to read the color bands against a blue background. But we should be pretty good here. We'll find out eventually. We'll get that one in. Could have done better with that first joint. There we go. I'm moving kind of quickly. Do not expect yourself to be able to do this quickly. I have been playing around with electronics for a while. Now let's see. We've got C1 and C3 and C2. Do I want to put... How do I want to do this? Alright, I'm going to go back to the website, back to Amazon and see if there's any indication. No, not really. There's no picture of it, no close-up of it assembled that would give me a good enough picture of which resistor or which capacitor is which. So now I'm going to look at this. Oh, they're all supposed to be the same. Okay. Alright. They're just, for whatever reason, they look slightly different. So let's get them on there. Nope, that kind of went in the wrong way. The spacing is a little odd. So I'm going to have to squeeze the leads together a little bit. Actually, in a perfect world, what we would do is get a pair of pliers. This may be hard to show, but I'm going to try to bend it just slightly. And let me put it down on there so you can see. Let me try and do another one. Maybe I can do a better job of that. There's a way to kind of bend them in. You bend in, and then you move down a little bit and bend back out. But if you do it right, what you end up doing is straightening the legs, but now they're closer together. And you're going to do that with both legs. So bend in and bend back out. And if you do it right, your legs are now closer together. So I'm hoping that's right. Well, certainly worked better. Let's see if I can get greedy and do two. Okay. Now I've just got to kind of try and hold it so they don't fall out while I'm... Yeah, that worked. Solder them in. These are non-polar capacitors, meaning you can't put them in backwards. In other words, it is not possible to put them in backwards. Of course, if you do two at the same time, it's harder to solder to get the angle on it. Just because it's crowded. There we go. That's got that. Let's see if we can cut those leads. As usual, I am putting my finger on the tip of the lead when I cut it so it doesn't ping across the room. Sometimes when you cut these, they will do that. And if you're barefoot, you're not going to like yourself. Alright, let's see if this third one will fit in there. I did not rebend the leads on this. Let's see if I can make it work anyway. Yeah, the spacing's a little bit better. No, I'm going to form the leads. Let's do this right. So bend in and then back out, but a little lower. Bend in, but back out a little bit lower. And then hope you got the spacing about right. You can always adjust, but you don't want to bend the leads too much or you might break them off. Then you're looking for replacement parts. These are capacitors that are supposed to be labeled 104. They don't appear to be labeled at all, so you're just taking their word for it. But you can look up the capacitor code, what the 104 actually means, if you need to go find replacements. Here's one. Here's two. Okay, that's got that one. tiny little pieces. We're halfway home. Now I'm going to put the socket in, and if you look carefully at this socket, I'm going to try to show this. I'm hoping it'll focus. On this side there's a little cutout, and that corresponds to the end that has pin number 1. And since I'm about to cover up the silk screen here, I want to try and match it up so that I can use the socket as a reference to where pin number 1 is supposed to be. And that just went in. Now I'm going to put it down. I'm going to solder 1 pin, and then I'm going to make sure that it's seated properly. So that square pad there is actually representing pin number 1, and I can see it's not seated properly. So what I can do is reheat now and push it down, and now I am fully seated. That pin is soldered, and I can solder the rest of them without worrying about it slipping out. So there's that one, that one, that one, 6, 7. These are not the pin numbers, I'm just counting how many I've soldered. That's an 8-pin chip, and it's 8 pins soldered on the socket. I can put the chip in later. We have another capacitor to put on. And this is a polarized capacitor, meaning you have to put it in one direction. It is possible to put this in backwards. Now, there is on this side, there's a negative, there's a stripe right here, and a negative sign, and that should correspond on the circuit board to the white colored filled in area here. So I'm going to put it in that direction. And sometimes they fit down on the board nicely. Sometimes you don't want to push them in too hard because you don't want to stress the legs too much. But it's pretty close. Now again, like with others, with some components, I can put it on and then I can try and put my finger on this side of the board and on that component, try and straighten it out a little. Oop, that made it worse. You just have to hold it for a moment and then it'll stay straight. You can solder the other pin. That's got that. We can cut off the legs. Okay, we got that now. I don't believe there's any real... Oh, there is an indication. I'm looking at the header here. And for the header, there are these 2 little white dots here. And I believe that that is corresponding. This is not a polarized component. You could put it in backwards, but it probably makes more sense to follow whatever sort of hints they give you. So it looks to me like these 2 little slots in here are supposed to match up. So I'm going to stick that on. Yep, that went on nicely. Let's get that soldered. That's going to require a bit more solder. And that does give me options for how I could hook this thing up, considering the battery pack is smashed. I might have another battery pack handy and another kit. So, alright, now we're down to the speaker. And I'm going to take these wires. Oh, wow, I missed a whole bunch. You're probably looking at these switches and wondering, alright, if you look at the switches carefully, there are 4 pins. The 2 are closer together here and there than they are going across. So it makes it so you can really only locate this switch in one position. And even though there are 4 pins, I think they only actually need 2 for what we're doing here. So I'm going to try and get that in. And the legs are actually set up in such a way that it'll hold itself pretty nicely. So I'm going to see if the pins aren't bent too badly, if I can put all 8 of these on before I solder. Okay, now for a bunch of soldering. Okay. I do believe that's all of them. That one could use a little bit more. Alright. Wow, what's left? Power and the speaker. Alright. And putting the chip in. Oh, and putting all the caps on, but that's... Even though this is showing red and black, like positive and negative, I don't think it's actually going to matter. So let's see if I can't just stick that in there. Speakers are, by their nature, not polarized. Although in stereo systems you can have them out of phase, which creates its own set of problems. Alright, that's got that. Now let's see if we can't solder to the bottom of the speaker. There are 2 little pads here, one on either side of a little notch. And that is what I'm going to attempt to solder to. In fact, actually what I'm going to do is add a little bit of, because a lot of these things come with lead-free solder, which is harder to melt. Oh crap. I hadn't thought of that. The soldering iron is actually ferrous. I gotta be a little careful about that. That's one. Oops. That's the second. We'll go back to the first. Do a better job on that. What do you know? We're connected. Okay, now I gotta get power somehow. Let me check a couple of the kits that we haven't built yet. Alright, what I'm considering here is this kit, which I just released a video on, and having to take the battery pack off of that. I'll figure out later if I've got another battery pack lying around that I can replace. On this one, let me just make sure Yeah, I got plus and minus on that one, so it's really just a matter of pulling these two leads out. There we go. Those two are out. Then in theory, I can hook them up here. You know what? I'm not sure which side's positive, which side's negative. Interesting. Okay. Most likely the negative will be a common connection to a bunch of stuff. That is tricky. I'm not sure which is which. Alright, we're going to have to do this a different way. I'm going to take the chip, which has... Where is... Okay. It's going to be really hard to see, but the notch is up here, which means that that's pin 1 right there. So if I match that on what I did here, is where it really does come into play. I'll put the chip in. Oh. First we got to straighten out the bent pins carefully. It should be close enough that I can get it. You want to be careful putting it in because you don't want to bend the pins while you're inserting it. Okay, very carefully checking as I put it in. Alright, we're in. Okay, so what I can do now, or put all these caps on, I'm going to try. First I need to put the battery down, so I know I've got my 4.5 volts here. I'm going to try to connect this very loosely on the top, so I don't want to burn anything out. I'm going to hold down one of these buttons while I try to do this, hoping that it will make a tone. No tone, so let me try switching them. If I do it just briefly, even if I have it wrong, it should be okay, but let's see. We have sound. So it appears to be positive is closer to the chip and negative is closer to the end of the board. So let me see if I've got a screwdriver small enough to fit in there. No. Let me go to another set of screwdrivers. Just happen to have some of this nearby. Let's see if this jeweler's screwdriver is... Yep. So this is a Phillips head. This is a small screwdriver. I believe I said positive was closer to the chip. So the idea is you're going to stick it into that little cavity there and then tighten down the screw. And get the negative in there. There are no lights or anything on this to indicate that it's on. Okay, power is connected. So now in theory we should have let me try and move the microphone closer. This is really not very loud at all. So that would be one of the first hacks, I think, for this, is to try and improve the volume. But I'm going to try and move the microphone. So my apologies for all the miscellaneous noise you'll hear. Let me get that near the speaker. And I'm hoping that that will work out. This one doesn't seem right. That's another hack we could go after, because really, I think the only thing determining the tone is the resistor up above it. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, you can see it on the traces here. You can see this is a common line for all of these switches going into one leg, and then coming out of another leg is going up to the resistor, and the resistor's going across. Okay, yeah, and then this resistor connects to that one. Really what they're doing is, it's kind of like, this switch is only 2K, but this switch is the 2K plus the next 2K. This one is is all three of these. And so on, and that's why you end up with a 1K resistor near the end, and I'm not sure. The 10K may be connected a little bit differently. Whoops, I just knocked the positive out. But you get the idea. It's really not loud at all, and it's got a few other little issues. Let me see about putting these caps on. Really, the caps should fit right on there. Is there only one way they can go on? No, it's a square post, and the bottom of the cap has four little things that'll snap onto it. So it should just be a matter of... There it goes. So now it's a nicer looking button. That's really all it is. And actually it looks like the caps... Okay, they're spaced close enough together that it kind of keeps them in line, but it turns out these things will... Let me put the fourth one on instead of the third. These things do twist back and forth a little bit. Once I put the third in there, though, it keeps them from moving around. So it does look reasonably neat. Alright, well, you get the idea. We got four more to put on, and we can call this one done. We're going to keep watching the channel, and depending on what I come up with, I'm looking at hacks for various kits I've already done. I'm looking at other kits. I did build one that's a much more difficult, and I'm just trying to get the practice in before I try and do videos that are much more involved kits. But there you go. Now you get all 8 of them. Unfortunately, the power wire came out, but I'll figure that out. You've heard it, at least the best I can play it for you. I am not a musician, but it'd be fun to be able to kind of do this thing, and then maybe have some more switches somewhere that change the sound around and have a better amplifier on this for sure. But it's a beginning. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you learned something. Take care of yourself. We'll see you on the next one.